My childhood was really good. I got decent grades in high school, and I was captain of the wrestling team. I had a really good childhood. Both my parents loved me. We got along really well. There was no early signs that I was going to become a heroin user down the road. My name is Dan. I'm 29 years old, and I am an ex-addict. I started off on painkillers with just opiates in general. I had ran into a friend. He had a prescription of Vicodin that he was taking for an injury. Here, have one of these. They're going to make you feel great. And I did. And yeah, he was right. It makes you feel good. And from that point on, I started using Vicodin pretty regularly every day. Heroin was just kind of easier to get off the streets, and so I'm not really sure how I started off or who actually introduced me first to heroin. So I started using heroin. I started out just hooting it, snorting it. And until a friend of mine introduced me to shooting up intravenous or shooting up, with a needle. And from that very first point on, it just kind of took off and escalated downward very quickly. I don't really know when there's nothing that really disrupted my childhood to make me want to use in the first place. I've kind of dealt with depression a little bit in my teen years, and I wasn't really sure how to handle my depression, and I went to doctors and got treated for, I would take certain antidepressants, and I really didn't like how they made me feel. When I started using painkillers, my buddy introduced me for the first time. It made me feel really good. It made me feel like, no one's gonna judge me. No one's gonna, I was off in my own little world to where, I didn't have to worry about how I felt, how others felt. It was bad when I was doing the opiates and the painkiller thing, but things didn't really start getting absolutely terrible until I started shooting heroin. Heroin doesn't discriminate, race, sex, doesn't matter. If you start using it, it's gonna take your life. It's gonna turn you into somebody you're not. I would pawn all my musical equipment just to get some extra money, or even if I didn't have money, I would find ways to make money, and just so I could get high that day and not feel like shit, not experience the withdrawal. Started losing all my money. I lost jobs. Everything just started going downhill. For me, I didn't just wake up one day and I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna do some drugs today because I'm bored and it sounds fun. Yeah, I think I'd really like to do some drugs today. I don't think anybody, grows up thinking that they're going to be a heroin addict or wanting to be a heroin addict. You pick up the needle, you pick up the drug, whatever your drug of choice might be, and you can escape and not think about the actual problem that's going on and not even deal with it. So there was a point in time in my use where, I'd been using for maybe a couple years, and I got really fed up with it. I didn't like who I was looking at in the mirror. I didn't like anything about myself and where my life was going. You start using and you see your life decline, and you don't like who you are anymore. And I think that ties into some of the depression that I have personally, or for others, for a lot of people, it's depression that they use in the first place. You could have the best childhood in the world, you could be a star athlete, whatever the case may be. You start using because you have depression, and it makes all those bad feelings go away. I didn't want to put anybody through any more hell that I had already put them through, so I decided I was going to sell my car so I could have some money to buy some heroin. And I took about, I'd say roughly close to 1.5 grams, 2 grams, because I'm a very little guy, so it doesn't take very much to get me where I need to be. And I shot it up in hopes to kind of end my life and just kind of take care of everything, because I didn't want to hurt my mom. I didn't want to hurt my sister, my girlfriend at the time. I didn't want to hurt anybody anymore. So I decided it was time for a suicide plan, and that was the route to go. I shot that up, I went to sleep, and the next morning I woke up and I was still alive. I don't know if the heroin wasn't good enough or wasn't strong enough, but the suicide plan didn't work. And my face was puffed out. I have a burn mark on my head. This scar right here, that's from, I still don't know to this day where or how I got it, but I woke up with, allergic reaction to whatever I might have hit or whatever I was doing that night that I did that and woke up like that. I spent 3 days in ICU at the hospital. After that, though, I realized and others realized that it was probably time for me to go to rehab, and I think that was my first time in rehab where I wanted to get clean, and I admitted myself in there so I could get better. But after I got out of rehab, I was comfortable with my life. I had a good job. Everything was going well. And I was probably close to 6 months clean. And it honestly didn't take very long or very much to persuade myself to want to go back to it again. I thought, well, I'll take this weekend and I'll do a little bit on Saturday. I just can't go crazy. I told myself in my head that I wouldn't get out of control like I was, but that wasn't the case. All addicts, they want to get help, but in all honesty, a lot of the rehabs, some of them don't accept your insurance. Some people don't have money. I mean, obviously, if you're an addict, you probably don't have money in your account, so it makes it that much harder to get the help that you need. And it's actually kind of hard to find help anywhere, and it's a lot more difficult than people might think. My heroin use has affected a lot of people that I didn't think would affect. More directly, probably my mother. She drinks maybe once a year, and both my parents were pretty sober people, and I like to think that they raised me right. It wasn't my parents' fault that I became an addict. The only person that's going to help you get clean is yourself. Your mom or dad or whoever can't hold your hand through your addiction and make you or force you to get clean. You've got to be happy with yourself, and you have to be happy with the person that you're staring back at in the mirror in order to get clean. Because if you don't love yourself, there's a very good chance that you're not going to get clean. And some people will enter rehab, thinking that, or either that or their parents put them in rehab, or they were forced into rehab by the court. That's all fine and well, and sometimes that might help. But a lot of the time, it's got to be you that makes that conscious decision to want to get clean. And you've got to do it for you. You can't do it for your girlfriend, you can't do it for your mom, you can't do it for your kids, you can't do it for your dog. You got to do it for yourself. During your use, you don't realize how beautiful life actually is until you get clean, because when you're using, you're in a fog. Like I said, it makes you emotionless. You're focused on the drug, and it takes you away to another dimension. Everybody loves their kids. You care about your children, and you want to make sure you do what's right for them. But when you're using, it doesn't even matter. You don't care about anything. When you're on heroin, you don't care about anything or anybody. Your addicts are very selfish, and they only want their next fix. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are or how much money you have, how poor you are. Heroin's the epidemic of heroin is taking over a lot, and it's affecting a lot of people. It's killing a lot of people, and some people didn't even have a chance to get themselves together and experience life the way they wanted to, because they were never able to find help. They couldn't find the help, or they were just so stuck in their heroin lifestyle that they never got help. There's not one set solution. There's not a 100% cure that's gonna stop anyone from using heroin or get you better. In the long run, there's not much that can be done about making sure that you never touch heroin again. But there are ways that you can cope with it. When you realize that life is an absolutely beautiful thing, you don't realize it at the time when you're using, but life has its ups and downs. Life will get rough. It's how you choose to deal with certain situations. There's ways that you can deal with certain things, and life isn't always going to be 100% perfect. We're going to have problems. There's going to be things that get you down. You're going to get depressed. But there is absolutely life outside of heroin addiction. It really boils down to you. If you want to be happy, even if you don't feel happy, if you're depressed, there's ways to go about making yourself give it up. There's ways to go about getting your life back on track. Just because you're in this downward spiral doesn't mean that you need to give up. Life isn't over, and the way I see it, life has only just begun.